If you're cooking meat and you look at any recipe, it's going to give you a particular temperature to cook at for a particular amount of time. The problem with that is there's way too many variables for there to be a one-size-fits-all temperature-time equation, the least of which is how thick your piece of meat is. And obviously, the thicker it is, the more time it needs or a higher temperature it needs. And that's why I think every kitchen should have a food thermometer. For starters, that's the only way you can make sure that your food is actually safe to eat, that you've cooked it to a temperature that's high enough to kill any pathogens, any bacteria in your food, but also beyond the food safety aspect, that you're not overcooking your food and thus by affecting the taste and the texture. Now, the most basic form of a food thermometer would come in something like this. You just stick it in your food and you read the temperature, which is great. But in my opinion, something like this is more geared towards making sure your food is safe to eat. That is, it got to the correct internal temperature, rather than make sure it is overdone. And that's simply because if you're cooking something, you're not gonna have this in your food and you hovering over that pan all the time to make sure you stop cooking at that correct temperature. You're gonna periodically check the internal temperature, and chances are you're gonna overshoot the ideal temperature for that food. But then there are other solutions that make sure you really remove your food from heat as soon as it hits the right temperature. Possibly something like this. You stick this into your food, even if it's cooking in the oven. You've got that long heat-resistant cable, and then your thermometer is over here. You can preset it to whatever temperature, and as soon as the internal temperature of your food hits that temperature, this is gonna beep. That's time to move it out of the oven. The problem with something like this, beyond the fact that you have to find the internal temperature of whatever you're cooking and set it yourself, is the wire and the size of this. So forget about trying to cook something in the pan. This is simply too big. And then even when you have this in the oven, it hinders the oven door. It doesn't close correctly. It's hard to use in an air fryer. So while having something like this is great to make sure you don't overcook your food, it's a bit cumbersome to use. And this is where this comes in handy. This is the MeatStick Chef X. And what that is, a very small wireless thermometer. Put in your food inside the oven, in a pan, in an air fryer, in a barbecue, whatever it is, connects to your phone with an awesome app, and I'll show you that in just a bit. Select whatever you're cooking and the doneness level that you want, and simply get an alert on your phone whenever the food is done. No wire, no hassle, just wireless freedom and easy, perfect cooking. Now, what sets the Chef X apart from other MeatStick thermometers and others in the market as well is its size. It's really small. And if I compare it to other wireless thermometers, look at the size difference. And the advantage of this small size is that you can easily use it for smaller cuts of meat, like chicken breast or salmon steak, or even a filet mignon. And another advantage, if you're cooking in a pan, for example, where you don't always have ample space, this is just the perfect size versus something like this that's gonna protrude and stick out of your food and possibly touch the sides of the pan. Another great thing about the Chef X is that it has 4 temperature sensors. There's an ambient sensor over here that's gonna give you the ambient temperature, and this is extremely useful. And then over here in the probe itself, there are 3 different sensors. And the benefit of that is that when you insert any thermometer, any probe into the food, you should be inserting it in the thickest part of the food, of course, so that you make sure that that gets cooked to the right temperature. The problem is you're generally eyeballing the thickest part of the food. You're not using a caliper and a cross-section of the food to literally find the thickest part. And more often than not, you're gonna miss that exact spot of the thickest part. And this is where having 3 different sensors spread out comes in handy, because if the tip misses the thickest part, then you've got the middle sensor, and if that misses it, then you've got the upper sensors. So the 3 sensors that are spread out are going to make sure that wherever you put your probe, and even if it's a little bit off, you're still going to get the temperature reading of the thickest part, and you're going to be cooking safely. Now let me show you what the app looks like and how you set it up. So once you open the app, you can set up a cook, and here you can choose which cooking method you're using, from air fryer to grill to a smoker, an oven, stove, sous vide, or even deep frying. So let's say you want to air fry, then you select your meat type: beef, poultry, pork, lamb, seafood, or plant-based. Let's select beef, for example, and then you've got the different cuts of beef. Let's say we want to cook a sirloin tip. And then you can choose your doneness level, and you've got a preset of all the USDA temperatures. And for something like steak, you can choose anywhere between rare and well done. So let's say we select medium rare. It's going to give you that target temperature of 57 degrees Celsius. Now there's also a target ambient temperature, and that in my opinion is more useful if you're on a smoker or in a barbecue, because it can get really hot and then you're gonna get an alert. Speaking of alerts, you can adjust the temperature alerts. And here you can adjust two different alerts. The first one is the early warning, and that takes into account carryover cooking. So when you remove food from a heat source, it's going to continue cooking, and that's the carryover cooking. So if you're targeting an internal temperature of 57 degrees Celsius for that medium rare, and you remove it from the heat at 57, it's going to still cook for an extra couple of degrees with that carryover cooking. And this is why you've got the early warning at 54 degrees over here to give you that alert to remove the food from that heat source and continue the carryover cooking. And then once it hits the target temperature, you know you're good to go. Now it gives you a default early warning, but as you can see, you can change it to whatever suits you over here, which is nice. And then you also get a target warning, which is set at 57 degrees. That's the doneness level that we selected. So then once you start the cook, it's going to look for the thermometer. It's going to give you a warning to make sure that you insert the probe completely and into the thickest part of your food. And then you're going to start cooking. And right away, and what I absolutely love about the MeatStick is that you can see the temperature of each of those three sensors. So you see the three sensors at the tip, in the middle, and the top. And you see the ambient sensor as well. And this is going to be illustrated on a graph, which is really nice. And if you're cooking this in any particular way, you can simply add a note to describe whatever you've done in this particular cooking method so that you can come back to it. Another really nice thing is that you can actually see all the past cooks. So here you've got all the past cooks. So for example, if I take a look at this one, this is where I cooked duck in an air fryer. You've got the temperature gradient, and wherever you click on that graph, it's going to show you what that temperature was at that time. So 8 minutes and 29 seconds on the top right, this is how much time it elapsed. And we had gotten to 43.8 degrees Celsius, and my target was 57. And you can see again the temperature across the three different sensors and the ambient temperature. And this is really good having that graph because you can practice how best to cook your food at what temperatures. And it's a scientific way of doing it to make sure you get the right internal temperature, the right texture, and the right doneness level. Enough talking about this, let me show it to you in action. So the first cooking test is going to be with some chicken breast. You need to find the thickest part of the breast and carefully insert the probe there. I'm going to cook this in my air fryer. So when I set up the cook, I select air fryer, then poultry, and then chicken breast. Of course, chicken has to be cooked to well done, and that's 74 degrees Celsius. So we start the cook. And what I love about this is the graph that visualizes the temperature, both of the ambient temperature, and that's what you see in blue, but also of the three different sensors on the probe. And as you can see, time passes and the temperature starts getting higher and higher until it reaches that early warning that's set at 71 degrees Celsius. At that point, it's going to tell us to remove the food from the heat source. And then once the carryover cooking is done and the target temperature is reached, we're going to get another warning. As you can see, extremely moist, perfectly cooked chicken breast. Next up, I did the same experiment, but with a whole chicken. So same thing, insert the probe in the thickest part of the breast, select poultry and chicken. And here what I did, I dropped the early warning temperature by a couple of degrees just to give myself that margin of error, and I started the cook. And again, once the early temperature is reached, you're going to be asked to remove from the heat source, let it do the carryover cooking, and then once the target temperature is reached at 74 degrees Celsius, you're going to get another warning and you're ready to eat. As you can see, perfectly moist, perfectly cooked, very tender, whole chicken. Now the final test, I wanted to cook red meat and I wanted to use the pan because this is where you can see the benefits of the small probe because it can easily fit in a frying pan. I'm cooking duck breast and I like my duck breast cooked to medium rare. So when you set it up, first you select stove and then under poultry you select duck breast, and the default is well done, but I like my duck breast at medium rare. That's 57 degrees Celsius. So again, starting the cook, and the way I cook duck breast, I start off with a cold stainless steel pan. I put the duck breast skin side down and I start off at very low heat to allow the fat to render. And again, once I hit the target temperature, I got perfectly seared and perfectly medium rare duck breast. So that's it for me and the MeatStick Chef X. And to be honest, I really love this thing. It's very convenient to use, very easy to use, and I cannot imagine cooking without something like this because I always want to make sure my food is safe, but also the correct doneness level. I hate eating overcooked food, and the MeatStick Chef X ensures that I don't. Let me know in the comment section if you have any questions. I'll put links in the description to the product page of the MeatStick Chef X. These are affiliate links, so if you do decide to purchase the MeatStick Chef X, I would appreciate if you'd use the links. I may earn some commission at absolutely no extra cost to you, but this will greatly help support the channel. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. Until next time, cheers.